Hi Justin, thanks for appearing on Changeboard. And I just want to talk a little bit about your book, Better Under Pressure. Can you tell me a bit about your background and how you got into what you're doing now with Spencer Stuart?
Yeah, I was in school. I studied in the 1990s under Peter Drucker, and I developed some work around a concept called executive intelligence. And that led to an interview by a person who at the time was not as famous as he is now. Malcolm Gladwell interviewed me for work, and he printed our interview, and then that led to a bunch of things, and that's how I ended up at Spencer Stuart and doing CEO succession work is what I've done since 2002.
Great. And what drove you to writing the book?
I was sitting actually in a boardroom, and this is back in '05. And I was with a company that actually broke a record for profitability ever. They made the most money any company had ever made that year. And when I was helping them, we were talking about the next CEO who would take over and the challenges we put on the whiteboard that they would have to face to try and understand what attributes would be required in order to really do best for those challenges. And I was struck by each one of those things we wrote down were totally plausible. And they weren't nightmare situations. They were actually things like it was an energy company. So 70% of their supply lines were being threatened with nationalization by the countries in which they were located. Environmental groups were looking for their outright replacement, calling their product a threat to the environment. They wanted it entirely replaced within the next 10 years. And there were massive momentum around political movements to tax heavily their product. They wouldn't cease to make money, and yet any one of them absolutely could happen. So I realized that even the most profitable company in the world now was threatened with variables that could fatally affect their business, that there were no more calm seas to be had in any business. It used to be in technology businesses with short product cycles, but now it was even office products companies are under change.
And you identified 3 main attributes to make a successful CEO. So can you talk about your realistic optimism, your subservience to purpose, and finding chaos in order? Finding order in chaos.
Chaos in order, chaos, yeah. Either. Of course, realistic optimism. So what happened was I have, because of the work I do, I gather a lot of data on candidates that are being considered for the CEO role. So I'm able to look very in depth on each one. And because they're very interested in becoming chief executive, they allow me to do things like we do cognitive ability testing, personality tests, in-depth behavioral interviewing. We interview colleagues, 3 coworker feedback, and then we get performance ratings as well. And I had developed a database of just about 243 at the time that I did the book. And then I divided them into quartiles of top and middle and bottom. And then I compare the top quartile to the bottom. And what made the top quartile so successful, what were they so complimented for? Why were they identified as so distinct? What was distinctive about them? And then I looked at the bottom and what people thought was so terrible about them. And there were these very consistent patterns around those 3 things, that the top quartile had realistic optimism, and the bottom quartile had what they call blind optimism. And so I started, what's the difference? Why would, and what it turns out that optimism, it seems like it would be a good thing in a world of ongoing, relentless pressure. And lots of obstacles, problems, falling down a lot and having to get back up again. It seems like optimism would be good.
And with the finding order in chaos, you talk about leaders wanting to find or share their humility and be vulnerable. Can you explain a bit about that? Because you use a few examples in your book at the end of the book, don't you, to illustrate that? And I found that quite fascinating.
Yeah. So finding order in chaos.
Yes.
The pattern, it used to be that you could sort of figure something out and then you could follow that strategy for 5 years. But now the world with more variables is a never-ending puzzle. So one has to sort of understand and just accept that it will never sort of be figured out, and find joy in that. Find joy in the stimulation of a world where the puzzle is always changing, and you would want to figure it out. I think one of the example maybe you found amusing that you're thinking of was A.G. Lafley at Procter & Gamble, how he went down to the river in Brazil because he was doing some conferences down there and some meetings, and he canceled them because he was trying to understand why one of their laundry detergents had failed so badly. The laundry detergent didn't require a rinse cycle, so it didn't need any clean water to rinse the clothes, which should have been a huge success, and it wasn't. So he wanted to understand why, so he went and watched people doing their laundry, and he found out that it turns out without suds, none of the people thought that it was working, so they added suds. And I said, well, why after 7 years and being the most celebrated CEO in your industry would you do that? He found people endlessly unpredictable and fascinating, and that's what we're looking for, and that's what you want to infuse in your people, is that these puzzles, these problems are fun if you're prepared to take them on.